Big Meech, like, told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him, bust him, bust him. Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get EMF, ENT on the left side of his neck.
In there with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Kyle, which known in the paperwork as CS1.
Right.
Confidential source 1. So what Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation.
Is a government informant. So they tell me, he says, you know what this is about? And I said, no. He said, well, you threatened a government informant, and that's a federal.
Terrence Gangster Williams, the same OG who did hard time with Big Meech, just came out swinging and shut the whole debate down. His calling cap on 50 Cent's wild claims that Meech was a snitch. And not just that. Word from inside says Meech was practically running the joint like a kingpin behind bars. Gangster said it straight. It's all selective politics in this game. Who they call a rat and who they don't. Since he's been home, he's seen how fake that loyalty really is. According to him, every single inmate in there showed Meech nothing but straight-up respect. No shade, no whispers, just salute after salute. And now that this twist hit the net, the streets are side-eyeing 50 hard for pushing that snitch story. Folks are asking, what's the truth here? Was Meech really working with the feds? Or is 50 just salty because Meech linked up with Rick Ross and froze him out? Either way, the streets want answers, and Gangster just dropped a bombshell that's shaking the whole conversation.
Bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get EMF, ENT on the left side of his neck. His tattoo, and he made it clear. He said, listen, I'm not giving nobody no connect. I'm not hooking nobody up with nothing. I'm not doing nothing when y'all go home. So, in other words, you know, people try to get with him just for the games. You know, for me, let it be known, look, I ain't got nothing, nobody. I'm in jail doing my bid. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So,
in a newly resurfaced interview, New Orleans street legend Terrence Gangster Williams broke it all down like only a real one can. He said Meech wasn't just surviving in prison. He was running it. Every move, every favor, every connection. Meech was calling shots like a certified boss. The man turned a cell block into a boardroom, proving even behind bars, real power doesn't fade. It multiplies. Gangster said dudes were literally lining up to follow Meech like he was royalty walking that yard. No threats, no ego trips, just raw respect wherever he moved. And yo, it gets crazier. He said he remembers around 25 guys rolling out with Meech after lunch, heading straight to the rec yard. They'd hit the weights, knock out a workade, and when they were done, Meech would bottle up some homemade wine, grab some food from whoever was cooking, and chill in the cell just vibing and swapping street stories like a real neighborhood legend. Gangster said Meech wasn't just respected, he was admired. A humble dude, grounded, never acting above anyone, even though he could have easily played that boss role. What's wild is Meech actually had a shot to escape and slide back into that millionaire lifestyle before the feds locked everything down. But instead of dipping, he stayed solid and did his time like a real one. That right there tells you everything you need to know about his code. And don't worry, we're getting to that escape story in a second. It's insane. But first, let's put these snitching rumors to bed once and for all. People keep asking if Big Meech told on somebody or cut a deal to walk free, and the answer is flat out no. His paperwork is public record, and there's zero proof he ever pointed a finger at anyone. Gangster broke it down. Meech never sat with agents, never gave up a name, never said bust him. That's not in his DNA. The only name people keep throwing around is Tammy Cohen, a woman he was allegedly cool with. But even that story's shaky at best. See, 50's been out here loud with the claim that Meech turned federal informant based on what Tammy supposedly said. But when Gangster got pressed about it, he didn't flinch.
There ain't no other fool like this in the world. There never will be another. Not black. There never will. People just said that if like this is shining all together, being together, doing shit every day, then they gonna fall out over some money or somebody gonna rob, steal, and kill. I have yet to see that. All of us get along.
He said straight up he doesn't buy it for a second. According to him, Meech never folded, never snitched, and never sold out the code. In Gangsta's words, it's all cap, another case of street gossip turning into internet legend. And once you hear what really went down, 50's whole narrative starts to fall apart piece by piece. And it don't stop there. Gangsta didn't just speak on Meech. He threw low-key shots at the whole industry, too. He straight up called out dudes like 50 for being fake about who they label a snitch. According to Gangsta, a lot of these industry cats pick and choose who to blast, depending on who's hot or who they can't touch. He said it's all selective outrage, pure cap when the truth finally hits the surface. And to really get how all these snitching rumors even started, you've got to rewind the story back to the rise and the brutal crash of BMF. That's where it all began. See, that's what really set the stage for Meech catching that heavy 30-year bid. And here's the wild part. Meech actually had a perfect window to dip out, skip the feds, and live good overseas. He said it himself. If I was just thinking for self, I could have grabbed the unions and bounced somewhere they couldn't extradite me. But that wasn't his mission. He wasn't chasing a solo escape. He was trying to legitimize the whole family. At 37, Meech said he was slowing down anyway, tired of the pills, weed, long nights, money runs, and endless chaos. He was trying to turn the game into something clean. Meech could have ghosted and been living rich somewhere tropical, but he chose to stand 10 toes down and face that time like a real one. That move earned him massive respect in the streets, but it also sparked the messy drama we're seeing now, especially with 50 running around pushing those snitch claims. But to understand why Meech's name even hit that level of myth, you've got to go back to the beginning. Back to when two brothers from Southwest Detroit built an empire that had the whole country on lock, the Black Mafia family. BMF was born in 1985, the brainchild of Demetrius Big Meech Flannery and Terry Southwest T. Flannery. These dudes weren't chasing clout. They were building a dynasty. They had direct connects with top-tier Mexican suppliers and moved weight coast to coast like pros. Meech wasn't low-key either. He was flashy, bold, and unmissable. Dude once chartered a whole commercial flight for hundreds of people, paying for everybody like it was a royal event. It was like something straight out of a movie. Private jets, bottles, music, and a vibe that screamed untouchable. They leveled up through a family-owned car service that made everything look squeaky clean on paper, but underneath, it was major weight moving through luxury. By the early 2000s, BMF ran the streets and the clubs. From Atlanta to L.A., their name rang bells. They built an entertainment label that doubled as a cover, a real empire powered by loyalty and big money. At their peak, they had 500 members deep, homes in every major city, fleets of exotic cars, closets filled with designer drip, and no rivals in sight. Meech said it best, "We can't be stopped." But don't get it twisted, they didn't just inherit the crown. Meech and T fought bloody turf wars and took real hits along the way. T caught a bullet to the right eye back in the 80s, leaving him partially blind. Meech got shot twice, once in the neck outside a Chinese spot and again in 2004 outside a wild Atlanta club. That second hit was tied to a beef with Diddy's ex-bodyguard, Anthony Wolf Jones. Meech survived, but Wolf and another man didn't. The streets were ruthless, but Meech moved through it with the calm of a general. Outside the violence, though, BMF lived like legends. Meech once joked mid-laugh after that shooting, saying, "Man, Yogi, my ass is burning," only to realize he'd actually been shot. They were wild, fearless, and living large. We're talking 13 multi-million-dollar homes, fleets of Bentleys and Ferraris, and custom Jacob the jeweler ice that made crowds freeze in awe. Meech even talked about renting jets, throwing exotic animal parties, lions, tigers, elephants. Stuff no one had ever seen black men doing on that scale before. It wasn't fantasy. It was real-life luxury turned up to 100. But even empires built on loyalty crack under pressure. For BMF, that crack came when brotherhood turned to betrayal. Meech always said BMF stood for family first, loyalty, unity, and code. But once they hit the top, that unity started to splinter. Tensions between Meech and Southwest T grew loud, public, and violent. Witnesses said it went from shouting matches to full-blown wars. It got so bad that Meech accused his own brother of stealing from the empire. By the time BMF hit its peak, that rift was unfixable. T took the West Coast, and Meech held down Atlanta, the split that would change everything. Atlanta was on fire, Meech had the streets buzzing, and the clubs lit every single night. But once he and Southwest T split the empire, chaos hit full speed. The family started dividing, soldiers picking sides like it was a war zone. And just like that, the BMF machine began eating itself alive. Before long, headlines were screaming, top 10 most wanted BMF members caught. U.S. Marshals bagged 37-year-old Ernest Dennis and 40-year-old Jonathan Mano right outside a Buckhead hotel, calling them violent and deeply tied to Meech's criminal network. The feds weren't guessing. They'd been tracking BMF's every move since 2004. By then, BMF's operation in Atlanta was no secret. Investigators were uncovering limos with secret compartments holding nearly $1 million in cash, tracing paper trails that stretched coast to coast. But Meech wasn't slowing down. He had his sights on a bigger empire, the music industry. That's when BMF Entertainment was born. With Meech's star power, money, and magnetic personality, he slid into hip-hop like he belonged there. Suddenly, BMF wasn't just a street empire. It was a movement. Diddy, Jay-Z, T.I., and even 50 Cent were all orbiting Meech's world, soaking up the glow of his legend. Meech's flexes became the stuff of urban myth, pulling up to clubs 100 deep, shutting down VIP sections, parking 2 Maybachs right beside Jay-Z's just to make a statement. But the most jaw-dropping flex? That wild, jungle-themed birthday bash at Magic City, where Meech brought out 2 live white tigers in the middle of the club like it was nothing. Nobody in the game was doing it like that. Not before, not since. Meech was hip-hop's roll-live Scarface, living louder, bigger, and freer than anyone could imagine. But the higher they climbed, the deeper the cracks grew. Splitting the empire only made the tension between the brothers worse. T couldn't stand Meech's flashy lifestyle, and he started venting to close friends and family, not knowing the feds had him tapped the whole time. Every complaint, every word, every sigh, recorded. Meanwhile, Meech was still out here throwing parties where he could drop millions in a single night, not realizing undercover agents were already inside the building, blending in like regular guests, watching him up close. After a relentless 15-year investigation, the feds had everything they needed. Wiretaps, bank records, snitch statements, nearly 900 pages of evidence. There was no way out. In 2005, the hammer finally dropped. Big Meech and Southwest T got snatched up in a massive nationwide sting. Meech was taken down in Frisco, Texas. T got bagged in St. Louis. Over 150 BMF affiliates got swept up that same week, ending one of hip-hop's most powerful street dynasties in history. It was the end of an era and the rise of a legend. Truth is, the walls were already closing in before the raids. When the feds grabbed T first, Meech still had a chance to run. He could have crossed the border, vanished in Mexico, and lived good. But instead, he stood tall. He hit Miami to regroup, slid to Frisco, and when the agents came storming in, he didn't fight it. Game over. The feds didn't just take the brothers. They took the whole bloodline. Parents, sisters, girlfriends, everyone tied to their empire got dragged into the case because their names were on the businesses used to clean BMF money. Nobody was safe. The DEA saw that family bond as leverage. They told Meech and T, take the fall and your people walk. And being the real ones they were, that's exactly what they did. No hesitation, no deals, no pointing fingers. Just honor. The feds hit them with the same continuing criminal enterprise charges used on the biggest kingpins in history. Both brothers pled guilty, and both got slammed with 30-year federal sentences. Years later, when COVID hit, Southwest T caught a break and got released early. But Meech? He stayed solid. Still locked in, still standing on the same code that built BMF in the first place. T got lucky. He caught an early release and finished his sentence on house arrest. But Meech? Man, he wasn't that fortunate. Even with legit health issues, the feds slammed the door on his compassionate release. Fast forward 20 years later. In October 2024, Big Meech finally walked out a free man. But it wasn't the celebration people expected. He was still under tight conditions, finishing his time under supervision. And even while Meech and T were locked down, BMF didn't fade away. They transformed into straight-up legends. Their name kept echoing through the streets, the music, and the culture that refused to forget them. 5 years after the takedown, Meech's story exploded into pop culture. In 2010, author Mara Shalhoub dropped BMF, the rise and fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia family, putting their empire into the mainstream. That same year, Rick Ross dropped BMF Blowin' Money Fast, turning Meech's lifestyle into a global anthem. Then in 2020, 50 Cent teamed up with stars to bring the saga to TV, with Meech's own son, Lil Meech, playing his father. The show blew up, dominating ratings and turning BMF into a household name. By 2022, 50 and stars dropped the BMF documentary, Blowing Money Fast, and by 2023, they had spin-offs and a third season already cooking. It looked like Meech and BMF were finally getting the flowers they deserved, until one photo flipped the whole story upside down. Right after his release, Meech linked up with Rick Ross, and that single picture went viral. The internet went crazy, but 50 Cent took it personal. He accused Meech of being a snitch and publicly announced he was cutting off the BMF series. Meech stayed silent, calm, and collected, but made one thing clear: he never snitched on nobody. Still, 50 kept pressing the issue, claiming he had real paperwork proving Meech worked with the feds. But fans weren't buying it. Those documents have been floating around for years, and none of them actually call Meech an informant. Now here's where it gets messy. Some say Tammy Cohen, the woman tied to Meech's case, cut a deal that helped shorten his sentence. But that doesn't mean Meech was part of it. For that to be true, he would have had to give her the green light to pass info to the feds. If he didn't know or didn't approve, it's not snitching, it's manipulation. Still, 50's own son is now stirring the pot, pushing the idea that Meech was feeding Tammy info from behind bars. But real street legends like Gangsta Williams, who did time right beside Meech, say that's all cap. They swear Meech never folded, never cooperated, and never broke code. So what's really going on here? Why is 50's son pushing the Meech snitch angle so hard now? And if that paperwork's been public for years, why was 50 Cool making a whole hit show about him until that Rick Ross link-up? Is this about principle or pure pettiness? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And as always, if you're rocking with the real stories, hit that like button, share it, and subscribe. 'Cause this one, it's far from over.